Welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're doing a recap of Married at First Sight Unfiltered Season 12 with Dr. Pepper, Jacob, and Paige. So if you're new here, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, smash that like button, and also feel free to drop a comment down in the comment section below because I like to engage with my viewers and subscribers. Okay, so it starts out, of course, where we have our host, Jamie Otis, and she welcomes Dr. Pepper, and then, of course, Jacob, and also Paige. And Paige was there last week, and Jamie made a joke about whether or not she scared her off because, of course, she's back again, and she was like, no, I'm fine. But they talked about, well, I should say, Jamie brought up the fact of the last two final weddings that we're seeing and how some people want children, but some people want children quicker than others may. So it brought us to the scene of both Chris and Paige's wedding, where the pastor was talking about how, he's well on his way in regards to where he's going financially. And then he also brought up the fact of him loving God and wanting children. And then, in fact, the pastor said he actually wants and he's open to a honeymoon baby. And, of course, they laughed that off. And, of course, Chris had his reaction on his face. And then we come back with Jamie, and she was asked, she asked Paige, she says, how was it to not only get to know your husband, meet your husband for the first time, but then also know that he's ready to have a baby now? And she said, honeymoon baby, I don't even know your last name, even though she wants children, but, she thought it was quite soon. And Jamie asked, do you think he was serious or was he just joking? And Paige was like, looking at his facial reaction, he looks pretty serious to me. She said, who knows, but I'm still trying to figure him out myself. So she asked Jacob, what was his thoughts on the pastor saying something about a honeymoon baby. And Jacob was like, hey, this could be a spinoff series. And they laughed. I thought that was funny. He got like a sense of humor, kind of like Henry. It's unexpected because he's a quiet dude. So then Jamie brought up the next scene where when they were talking, both Chris and Paige, about the tattoo that he had, if you guys remember. And of course, as we remember, he said that he got the tattoo to cover up an old tattoo that he had with his ex because they had their names tatted on each other. And so, of course, bringing that up, she was wondering, how far or how disconnected are they really at this point? And, she thought obviously that was a concern because we saw the scene where her facial reaction was, okay, is this really over? And even Jamie brought that up in the conversation about the fact of why do you think he brought up his dating history? Now, the thing is, she asked about the tattoo. Okay, so the issue with the tattoo was he tried to cover it up. Now, there were other conversations that we saw that he talked a little bit more about the ex. But, of course, Jamie said, is that concerning for you? And, of course, Paige is, saying, well, yeah, is this chapter really closed, and, is there anything else out there that's going on with the situation? Jamie did ask, she think it was too soon for him to come into this process? And she said, yeah, he's recently engaged. That's a big commitment. It takes time to process and heal and become whole for the next person. And Jake was asked, what if he found out that his spouse was recently engaged? And he said he wouldn't be happy about it because, you want this great special moment to be for the first time. So it was unfortunate. Dr. Pepper said that they had long conversations with him and they wouldn't proceed with him if they didn't think he was a catch. And she said that she's still hoping that he is still a catch, but this is a terrible beginning and a way to start off. And so Jamie asked also, and I find that pretty interesting that she said that, because that's a lot. And I know they go through a vetting process. So I'm not sure what transpired, but, we'll have to continue to watch the journey. But she also asked, do she see her marriage going off the rails? And she says she doesn't want to leave anything left unturned in the marriage, but it does have her second guessing what she's getting herself into. And she has a lot of time to get it back on track. So it's now Jake's turn. And she asks, Jake, especially now that he's in the hot seat, you know, about deal breakers, because that's a conversation that came up with his friends, if there was any deal breakers. And Jake really didn't have anything. All he said is that, hopefully she likes dogs, because that's important. And, the other guy talked about the fact of him having all these 1980 references and too many inside jokes. So I know you guys probably remember that. But, Jamie asked him, if it's ever been an issue, any of these things with the 80s references. And Jake says no, but he does have a lot of inside jokes. And that might be a valid concern, but he doesn't have too many deal breakers. And he said it's unnecessary. We tend to carry unnecessary weight. We need to get to know the person first and see what connection is established, because you might learn that you may tolerate things that you didn't before. And that was a pretty interesting concept that he had, because there's sometimes you think, no, that's a deal breaker. And then when you're in the situation, it's like, maybe I need to rethink that. So I found that kind of interesting. But now Dr. Pepper said, because she had a response to that, she says, do not say hi and then drop all your worst stuff onto the person. But she says, talk about, some of the great things first, and then over time, let the person know what they need to know. You don't want to overload them right off the bat. So then it switches over again to Jake, and he talks about how he was really nervous when he saw the curtains and heard the music. And it got real standing up there, with all of the families, both hers and his, staring at him. And we saw, the vows that he took. And, the thing is that he was wondering about his hands being sweaty. He's funny. He really has a sense of humor. But they go back to the scene where they're exchanging their vows. And we remember when he was trying to read them and Haley jumped in and said, insert name here. He talked about how this is weird and he likes weird things. But then he loses his place. And of course, he's looking awkward like, okay, I lost my place. Where do I go from here? And it was funny. She laughed. And of course, the family members, they also laughed at the situation. But he definitely said he was all over the place. His emotions was on a high, at that point, because of the fact he was so nervous. But he also said that he was focusing on his hands being sweaty. Jamie asked him about the first impression on Haley, and he said he really didn't have a vision of what his wife was going to be. But in general, he just wanted to see it through the process. He has in the past been very specific throughout his relationship. So he's just going to submit himself to the process. And he took the test and see who they matched him with, and they'll see where it go. Now, Jamie brings up to Paige about the fact that Chris had a different idea of what his type is. And she said that, she thought that this was pretty devastating because, this is her husband. But she also said attraction grows over time. If you allow a lot of time and energy and effort to put in, you could see that this is something beautiful that you've never recognized before in front of your face. And Dr. Pepper gave advice for spouses. Sometimes you need to see inside the person. What animation sometimes make the person can be make them attractive, and you can tinker with someone. And right while she was talking, Jacob raises up his hand and said, "Oh, I remember. I do have a deal breaker." He said, "I do not like clogs." And of course, Jamie was like, "Okay, duly noted. You do not like clogs." Yeah, he reminds me of a funny Henry. He's real quiet, but he has that dry humor that just comes in out of nowhere. So then they drop us over to the scene where Chris is talking about if she's a virgin, and um, does she have a high sex drive, and is she on contraceptive, and it's a pretty interesting scene. I think on social media, this particular scene, amongst others, drove everybody to a frenzy. But yeah, it was definitely an unexpected conversation right on day one, and you can tell by Paige's face in this particular scene that she definitely didn't find that comforting. But she ended the conversation, said, "Now we're here." So Jamie asked the question, "How did you feel at your reception being asked about having a high sex drive and being a virgin, and how he fasted for 3 days by masturbating and purposely you know, stayed up for all of that so he can come here with a pure mind and everything," he said. And honestly, Paige said she really didn't want to comment on this. I mean, she was embarrassed about it. And, Dr. Pepper said that, hey, this is an unusual conversation. But I found it interesting that Dr. Pepper said that he said the whole thing about fasting was a way to show that he waited for her, or he held out for her, or something. So they tried to make light of the conversation. I found that interesting, but Paige took Dr. Pepper's conversation, or that statement, in stride. And so did Jamie. And then they decided to move on. But the thing about this, she also said that she feels anxious because she's never dealt with anything like this before, and she's wondering, with Chris, where is this going, and what did he want out of the situation. So it's very interesting, to say the least. Again, I'm continue to watching the journey. But now they talk about wedding photos. So I want to send a shout out to LaJoy Photography LLC. I did tag them on Instagram. She is running it over there with her business. If you're in the Atlanta area, go check her out. She has beautiful wedding photos and everything. So just go over there and show us some love. But they talk about the scene between Jacob and Haley, and LaJoy, the photographer, asked them to kiss, and she was like, "No, we need to do it in private." And so, of course, Jamie was asking, "Jacob, how you feel about this?" And Jake says, "Hey, we can turn it around. I want to make sure that she's comfortable, with everything in this process. But, it'll take some time for us to get to know each other and see how it go." And then there's Paige and Chris's photos. And you can see it was a little awkward because she said, "It's okay. I don't bite." But she also said in her confessional, as we remember, that, there's no connection there. She doesn't feel a connection there. But they were able to finish through the pictures and go ahead and take their final wedding picture. So Jamie asked her, what does she mean about the connection, and do she think there's going to be any growth there? And she said that, this is both new for us. It's different for us. We just met. We're strangers. She's really hopeful that over these next few weeks that they can actually find out why they were matched with each other and take it from there. So we'll definitely see the direction that they go. But there's another scene that is pretty interesting. And so the scene that, if you guys remember, of course, is where Chris is having conversation with her friends. And the whole thing about Chris saying that she's not the type of woman that he's dated before and what he's used to, and that he's used to the prissy woman, or the woman like a trophy wife. And the reactions on Jamie's face, the reactions on Paige's face, you can clearly see that she was blindsided. Now, I don't know when she saw this, if she even saw this episode, because it looks like she didn't know about this conversation, because Jamie asked her, your friends didn't tell you about that conversation? And she said no. And then, of course, Jake said, well, maybe they were trying to protect you. But, Jamie said, are you ready to throw in the towel? Because someone like this, what are your thoughts? And so she said that obviously there's some traumas, and you have to look outside of the person at this point and ask, who hurt you for you to feel like this and to make this kind of remark? And of course, Dr. Pepper, said that, hey, this doesn't reflect on you, it reflects on him, and because you're beautiful. But, the whole trophy wife conversation was pretty interesting. And she even said was the only thing that might help him out is Jesus and therapy. But if he's seriously committed and put in the necessary work to look outside the physical eye and look through his spiritual eye, she's praying for his sake over the next few weeks, he can start to realize what's in front of him. And Jamie said that, of course, she wants to give Paige a standing ovation. So that was the end of the episode. I got a question for you guys. What's your definition of a trophy wife? I've heard two sides, that it can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment. I'm curious. So until the next video, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you soon.